et bonum. Peace and God's good to you. The Lord shine his face upon you. Oh Lord, come and be the active God in our lives. Amen.
Amen.
Welcome to the UU. A beautiful 50-degree day to you here in March. I'm honored to think together with folks who want to give the Lord their hearts, souls, and minds. Lord, we give you our minds today. The Bible, a book written over 1,500 years, has little gems for how we can deal with anxiety. And today we're going to explore sober-mindedness. First, you guys, I want you to know I have a web page, uncensoredunprofessor.com. And on that page, I have a place where you can sign up for my occasional e-newsletter. There's also a page noting the books I'm currently reading and those on the deck and my all-time favorites. And still more, there's a place on my page where you can sign up to support my podcasting efforts on Patreon, Patreon. And this is the truth. I have the best supporters in the country. Over the last 5 years, while society was melting down, my supporters maintained their faithful giving to me. They liked that there was a Christian intellectual speaking truth in a culture collapsing into lies and deceit and demonic doctrines. My Patreon supporters wanted to support someone who was taking a bold stand despite the fact that it was tremendously unpopular to do so. All of that to say, me? I'd love to have you on the UU Patreon team, my listener. My average donor gives $11 per month. I invite you, please go to Patreon, type in Uncensored Unprofessor, and sign up for a monthly. Today I want to share a biblical gem with you, sober-mindedness, but first, a reflection on what's happening under Donald Trump's dramatically disruptive presidency. When America's genius, out-of-the-box, political forefathers established our nation, they set up 3 branches of government: judicial, legislative, and executive. Our founders wanted those 3 branches to vie for power with one another. The founders wanted a separation of powers. They didn't want the president to also be the judge. They didn't want the people controlling the purse strings, the legislative branch, to also be judges in everyday life. The founders themselves, having endured generational political corruption in Europe, they wanted a dispersal of power. So the Constitution is one long-running document that disperses powers in ways never before seen in human history. The Electoral College? It's a way to disperse power between the citizens of the nation. Big cities were not going to easily control how everything worked, Electoral College. And for the founders, all of that dispersal of power was intentional. Our forefathers intentionally put up roadblocks, right and left, to make governing the nation cumbersome. It was, honestly, most all of it was genius. But today we have a 4th branch of government, the bureaucracy. Some 3 to 4 million federal employees, depending on how you count them, they are in effect the 4th branch of the government. They do pretty much what they want through their bureaus. It doesn't much matter who the president is. Congress? They've been so busy for 130, 150 years? They've been so busy swallowing the government through reckless spending that they, whether inadvertently or intentionally, I don't know, but they've helped the 4th branch of government grow and grow and grow. Was that 4th branch of government intended by our founders? 9, no, and yet. That there is today millions of federal employees who barely answer to the other 3 branches? It's a horrid development. And the truth is, it sucks deep veins of financial blood from regular blue-collar citizens. Man, you're listening to me today and you can't afford to buy a home with a blue-collar income? You can thank America's 4th branch of government. Moms and dads, you can't pay the mortgage unless both of you are working? Thank our bloated federal 4th branch. No, that fourth branch vampire sucks your economic productivity and redistributes it all around the world for its own 99% unregulated aims and ends. So Elon Musk and Donald the Orange, for the first time in American history, they're trying to disrupt and even reconstruct our fourth branch of government. Oh, my listener, please say a prayer of God's favor toward them. But wait, there's more. You know this, you've heard about it. Federal employees in America are being laid off. Good people overseas are watching as funding for the orphanage they serve has been cut. I know friends whose mosquito program, which means their malaria prevention program, has temporarily been suspended. They're heartbroken. So many people are wondering, isn't what Trump and Elon are doing straight draconian? Do they need to be so harsh, abrupt? Why carry a sledgehammer into a surgery? One Facebook friend of mine called Elon Musk a sociopath for what he's doing. Another said all these USAID cuts are proof that Trump's a Russian plant. What on earth's going on? Well, to help me explain why they're doing what they're doing, the following excerpt is from an Epoch Times author named Jeffrey Tucker. Get this, quote, "For more than a century, even dating back to 1883, the civil service has grown and grown without check from the elected branch, either the presidency or the legislature. These bureaucracies have ballooned from a few to 450 or so. The bloat and absurdities have grown too. Get this, no one has ever known what to do about it. Not Coolidge, not Hoover, Nixon, Reagan, not Clinton, no one. No president has been able to crack this nut. The only reforms ever to have made it through are those that make the administrative state bigger, never smaller. Countless cabinet secretaries have come and gone, always with the intention of making a change, but leaving saddened, demoralized, outwitted, outgunned, and ultimately devoured. No president has seriously taken on this program because they simply did not know how. The unions are powerful. The intimidation from the deep institutional knowledge is overwhelming. The fear of the media has been powerful. And every single president comes to power vaguely feeling threatened by the intelligence agencies. The industries that have captured every single agency were also far too powerful to unseat or control. This combination of institutional inertia has blocked serious reform for a full century. No one has dared. No one has even had a theory or strategy about what to do about this problem. It had become so terrible that most people in politics have simply surrendered. Like homeowners who know there are rats in the basement and bats in the attic, but long ago gave up trying to fix the issue. Mr. Tucker continues, all this time the American people have felt themselves ever more oppressed, taxed and regulated, spied upon, browbeaten, and otherwise overwhelmed. Voting never made any difference because the politicians no longer controlled the systems. The bureaucracies ruled all. The Biden years underscored the point. We didn't even need a conscious and present executive. We only needed a figurehead to pretend to be president, just like the Soviet premiers in the old days. The institutions ran everything, and the people controlled nothing. The job of the president, goes the message from all the insiders, is to pretend to be in charge, but not actually do anything meaningful. Shut up, mug up, obey, and disturb nothing. Let the administrative state do its thing without oversight or disruption, and then you will get your honorary librarian, best-selling autobiography, and go down in history as great. Well, now Donald Trump is back again, this time with the determination to slay this beast, one that he knows all too well. The efforts of Doge and Maha and Mega are epic in scope, breaking a century of pathetic acquiescence toward the deep, middle, and shallow states, at last using moral courage to confront the problem head on, come what may. They are even profoundly aware that they must act fast and with some degree of ferocity, even recklessness, else we will default back to the status quo of leaders who pretend to be in charge while the embedded system runs things behind the scenes. It has been this way for too long. The voters this time have demanded change and mustered the faith to believe that change is possible. This is precisely what Doge is attempting. To make good on a promise that for once the voters actually believed was credible. And they, Doge and Maha and Maga, simply must succeed. There might never be another chance. The way of failure is the path everyone knows the U.S. was on, toward economic stagnation, political sclerosis, and eventual irrelevance. Close quote. In short, and I want to thank you for sending me that quote, Tanya. In short, the business model of the federal government is to grow, multiply, expand, spend, all without oversight. And that's being challenged and thwarted for the first time in history. The first time. Government spending bloat is being scrutinized for at least these 2 years. It is so direly needed. Because the honest truth is no family could ever run their home like that, their budgeting like that. But the American government has been reckless and out of control for way over a century. And me, the UU, like a teeth cavity-filled kid in the candy store, I'm cheering the efforts of Doge and Maha. Because yes, Mr. Tucker, indeed, it has been like this way too long. But here's the deal, you guys. There are complicated layers to this onion. Because I'm intrigued by this unprecedented epoch history-making effort to trim governmental waste, I've listened to some 6 hours of podcasts with Mike Benz. As I noted last week, Benz worked in the U.S. State Department under Trump's first presidency. I've also listened to 2 hours of a Joe Rogan podcast with Mike Baker. Baker worked in the CIA for some 20 years, where he did covert operations with regard to counterterrorism and counter-narcotics. And I learned from both Benz and Baker that life is messy. Life overseas is particularly messy. The doings of business in foreign countries are especially messy. And it is indeed true, both men asserted, that USAID has been used in wasteful, corrupt, and even fraudulent ways. But as Mike Baker put it, for thousands of years, someone's always on top. Someone always has the upper hand. Do we want it to be that upper hand is the United States, or the upper hand is Russia or China when it comes to overseas business ventures? My listener, this is how it works. Local economies, say Nashville, Tennessee, Asheville, North Carolina, Prineville, Oregon, just to keep it all real with 3 vills. Local economies are built on specific needs and markets. The United States mostly relies on foreign manufacturing, foreign natural minerals. Thank you, all of you green save the planet types. Shutting down a domestic market only moves that market overseas for the same materials. The United States relies on foreign supplies. And each of those foreign markets are structured such that someone is always on top. Someone, some country, some company, always has the best access to the market, the best pricing, the first access to the market. And local markets here in America depend on success in overseas markets. How to ensure American interests are on top over there in foreign countries? Well, chiefly, though not exclusively, through the use of USAID funds. Now, we might call using those funds a matter of greasing the skids or buttering up the chef, or more nakedly, bribery. Foreign markets are plied and primed and played by the use of U.S. aid monies doled out through the U.S. aid or the CIA or other agencies. But whether we like it or not, someone will always be on top. Someone will always have the better access to the market, access to the best pricing. To me, that all just makes historic sense with regard to human nature. No, not that I like it, but money has for millennia called the shots. All that to me makes historic sense. But here's my wonder. Is it possible to ply foreign markets in ways so that our own politicians don't become tens of millionaires in the process? Goodness, it's staggering. Senator so-and-so gets a salary of $200,000 per year, but then after 24 years in the U.S. Senate, they retire with a bank account of $60 million? What? Something stinks to high heaven. Is it possible to work the foreign markets? Because it's true, I want American companies to do better than Chinese companies. Is it possible to ply foreign markets in ways that avoid domestic kickbacks, trim, say by 95% the waste that is surely mixed into U.S. aid spending? And yikes, look, there's more. Much of the money America sends overseas ends up in the bank accounts of the tyrants, oligarchs, the president or prime minister, even the kings of foreign countries. They siphon off enormous rivers of American aid. Aid that was intended to help poor people, needy people, foster economic growth over in that foreign land. But so much of it ends up in the hands of the powerful. It's a horror show. And I wonder what percentage, say, across the last 64 years since USAID was established by JFK, what percentage of USAID monies has gone straight into the trough of corruption? How much of the poverty ministry's monies oversee orphanages, medical supplies, the financing of art and culture, building factories and the like? How much of that over 64 years has in truth wound up in the pockets of foreign rulers? Or God in heaven, American politicians? I'd be terrified to know the actual percentage. Volodymyr Zelensky says he's received half of the $177 billion of the Biden administration's money that was sent to Ukraine. Half. Where in the glonk did the other half go? Or on a smaller scale, when USAID funds, say $150,000 to sponsor a theater show in Costa Rica, what percentage of that even winds up at their local San Jose theater? Because for me, it's the waste, corruption, the fraud that makes all of this so ugly and sinful. And I say, praise God that Trump and Musk and others helping them are, to think again of Jeremiah 13:22, lifting the skirts on all this iniquity. Jeffrey Tucker, to repeat, said, quote, "No president has seriously taken on this problem because they simply did not know how. No one has ever even had a theory or strategy about what to do with this problem," end quote. Well, today we have two skilled businessmen, Orange Man, Bad, and Iron Man. They actually do know how to go about smashing tremendous governmental waste. And me, God in heaven, richly bless their efforts. We need the sledgehammer to keep swinging. And swinging and swinging until a new paradigm for the use of federal money is rebuilt. Many of my earliest listeners come from SoCal, the Golden State, the land of the la 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 Lakers and World Series champion Doyers. Do you live in SoCal, need your commercial building re-roofed, or your 57-year-old home finally needs a new top? Contact Gallerini Roofing. True pros, they're licensed, bonded, and experienced roofers. You can phone them at 714-244-6567. I have friends who had Gallerini do work for them and they were truly pleased. So 714-244-6567. Take action now with skilled and professional roofers. Gallerini Roofing, proud sponsor of the Uncensored Unprofessor. And hey, thinking of my amazing Gallerini Roofing sponsor? I'd love to regularly promote your company or agency or product. Contact me at uncensoredunprofessor@gmail.com and let's talk about your being a UU sponsor too. It's been fun to watch him the last few years, Patrick Mahomes, the amazing quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. And no, I'm not a Chiefs fan. I was actually rooting for the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I was giddy that the Eagles destroyed the Chiefs, but I also don't hate the Chiefs. I mean, all my life they've been miserable. I just didn't want them to surpass in NFL history. I didn't want the Chiefs to surpass the greatness of the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Washington Redskins or the New England Patriots. I mean, crying out loud. Tom Brady played 20 NFL seasons and went to 10 Super Bowls? But I do admire Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Why is that? Because Mahomes is one cool customer. He gets chased by brutally strong, amazingly quick men. I mean, they're tree strong men who'd like to tackle and maim him, but Mahomes keeps his cool. And he's only 29 years old. He's been in the league 7 years and he's been to the Super Bowl 5 times. But here's the deal, you guys. Here is the deal, you guys. It's not his winning that so impresses me. It's his sober-mindedness. He keeps his cool under extreme pressure. He keeps his eyes looking downfield all the while he's sprinting for a couple yards. And half the time he's sprinting for his life. He's one cool customer. Or even better, Mahomes is a sober-minded quarterback. Welcome to my 3rd episode, Anxiety, the Snake That Strangles All. I don't want you to live imprisoned lives. In my 1st episode, I narrated many real-life ways whereby we get strangled by other folks' anxiety. Last week, I looked at how differentiation can help us make room for ourselves when we're in proximity to profound anxiety. Our first calling as Christ followers is to be faithful to whom He wants us to be. And actually, as we peer through the Bible, we see there's a quality, a characteristic that repeats, a characteristic, or you could call it a virtue, that reappears, which is invaluable in the midst of anxiety, and that virtue is sober-mindedness. The apostle SaulusPaulusO'Tarsus he admonished sober-mindedness twice in 1 Timothy and once in 2 Timothy. An overseer must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, sober-minded, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach. 1 Timothy 3:2. Then, a little later in 3:11, Paul echoes, their wives likewise must be dignified, not slanderers, but sober-minded, faithful in all things. In his 2nd epistle to Timothy, Paul put it thus, as for you, always be sober-minded, endure suffering, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. 2 Timothy 4:5. The Greek word there is nephalion, sober, prudent, vigilant, sober, sobriety. Class, please say sobriety. Sobriety, teacher. The opposite of drunk or drunkenness. And my listener, you've undoubtedly seen someone who's drunk or high on drugs, right? Their physical abilities, their balance, motor control, speech, Those get impaired. Police, when they suspect a drunken driver, will tell them to step out of the car and walk a straight line. The police can tell pretty easily if someone's intoxicated or stoned. I mean, too often, gersh, if the number of babies born out of wedlock are any indicator, too often their mental abilities get impaired. They make bad decisions, foolish decisions. They lose a healthy sense of inhibition. They lose a sense of their own limitations. And in the midst of their stonedness, their drunkenness, they can more easily make bad moral decisions. I mean, honest to Pete, it's a meme now. Getting drunk and sleeping with someone you don't even know, it's sorrowful. Society's so aware of drunkenness that we have laws against drunk driving. We have mothers against drunk driving. There's too much that can go wrong. Lives can be ruined. So we are regularly, with TV ads, we're regularly and appropriately told to stay clear of drunkenness or to call for an Uber or assign a designated driver. For its part, the Bible regularly calls for sobriety when it comes to our spiritual moral state of being. Passages like Matthew 24, verses 42 through 44, where Jesus warns, "Therefore stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." End quote. Jesus is there yet again speaking eschatologically, and he says, be ready. You don't know when Christ will come again. And man, by the way, you guys, I like that Jesus compares our need to be vigilant like preparing for a thief entering to rob one's house. Jesus is all for self-defense. Oh, wowzers. I see down in California that legislators are preparing a bill, a new law, so that whoever wounds or shoots someone breaking into their own home, the homeowner, not the criminal, will be liable under the law. Jesus would have laughed scornfully at such foolishness. How should one live knowing that Christ will come again? With a sober gaze, a ready posture, not silly, not willy-nilly, not dismissive or indifferent, but sober, prepared. Now, classically, when we hear sober-mindedness, we think of a kind of joyless living. But the truth is, one can love life and still live sober-mindedly, prepared, aware of the serious evil and pain that lurks beyond the walls of immoral behavior. Or to bring this round full circle to anxiety, we can live our lives ready and aware that others will, by force of their personality or force of their anxious souls or their circumstances, they'll try to press down hard upon us. They'll try to suck the joy, the life, the energy out of our own souls. So being sober-minded is living with a sense of gravitas. It's an awareness that life is risky, an awareness that people commonly try to take advantage of us, use us, suck us into the vortex of their anxiety. Further still, sober-minded people actually live happier lives because they live with their eyes wide open. They know where the dangers in life reside. They know if you avoid this and stay away from that, your life will, as a constant pattern, be more joyous, healthier, happier. So, my listener, we shouldn't hear the phrase term sober-minded and think it means boring or droll, joyless, lifeless. No, it's just the opposite. Sober-minded living is ready to spring into action. And again, with regard to those anxiety vortexes around us, we can actively strategize how to remain attuned to Christ, attuned to the Spirit of God, rather than bowing our knee the knee of our existential energy to someone whose own anxiety would pull us in and chew us up. So, the cool thing is sober-minded people are vigilant, watchful. They know when someone is drawing too much attention to themselves. They can discern when someone is not just hurting, but trying to pull you into their own anxiety spiral. Watchfulness. Let me give you 3 more points. First, sober-minded folks are ready to act. The sober-minded have thought through how they will respond to a given situation. Again, like I said last week, I had a couple friends. They lived off campus. They didn't work there, so they could think more objectively with me, and they helped me anticipate power encounters with aggressive administrators. As we would talk and laugh and think together, they would help to try to anticipate. They would help me try to anticipate the moment or how a meeting or an encounter might play out. And me, I wanted to have thought it through enough not to say something erroneous, rash, emotional. Sober-minded folks are ready to act. What else? Secondly, sober-minded people maintain a clear head. Now, undoubtedly, my listener, you've had this happen to you. We've all done it. Someone confronts us in anger or terror or great grief, and we lose our ability to think clearly. Brain neurologists and counselors tell us that our brain, in that hyped-up situation, actually floods with chemicals. Epinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol, and from our pituitary gland, the hormone ACTH. I didn't look up how to say it or what those letters stand for. But what do those hormones and chemicals make us feel? The fight or flight syndrome, fight or flight. Almost instantaneously, we're ready to spring into action. But unfortunately, as our brain gets flooded by that, in the doing, we lose the ability to focus, lose the ability to speak clearly. We definitely can lose the ability to think sequentially, logically, reasonably. What's all that do? It easily leads to our doing more damage than good. So knowing all that, knowing how the brain works and gets flooded in big stress-induced situations, that's why soldiers and police and firemen train endlessly. They want to have built up a kind of muscle memory they can rely on so as not to make a stupid mistake in the midst of stress. They want to have ingrained themselves with proper training so that in the heat of the moment they don't endanger more people. In effect, they're training to have clear heads in the midst of confrontation and anxiety and stress. And we can do the same with regard to anxious people, overhyped groups of people who want to sabotage our differentiation. Sober-minded people maintain a clear head. Third, sober-minded people are fixed, steady. Maybe you know someone like this, right? They don't easily budge. They aren't emotionally crushed and manipulated by a sad tale. They don't despair upon learning unhappy news. No, they keep their heads. Me? I admire such folks. I was grateful for such folks, several of them on campus who would remain calm in the heat of some verbal tussle, some power struggle with administrators. Those folks were sober. They were fixed and steady. But let me go back to sports analogies. You ever watch professional golf? Yeah, I know how golf can seem boring. But if you've played the game, improved to a level of skill where you're strategizing about different shots played at different times, if you're committed to improvement, you know things will inevitably go wrong. Will you keep your head and stay calm, or will you get angry and yell? Because here's the deal. If you do the latter, like I sure have, more than likely that angry outburst mess up your game for the next several holes. It'll mess you up because there's a state of soul that's required to play good golf. And that state of soul could well be called sober-mindedness. Oh, my father-in-law Dennis and I played golf together for a good 15 years. He was always calm. He found gentle ways to admonish me when I lost my temper after a bad shot, a bad break. He taught me, or tried to stay sober-minded on the course. Or if you watch the PGA pros on TV, you'll see that even when their game is hot, even when they're on a nice run of birdies, just crushing their driver long and straight, just dropping putts left and right, emotionally they stay cool. Only a few of them make big, loud, emotional gestures. I mean, Tiger Woods is famous for some of his loud screams and fist pumps, but even Tiger, he would try to stay calm, even in the middle of some hot run. Why? Because if he allowed himself to get too much adrenaline, he would begin hitting his full shots too far and overamping his pitches and putts. The thing is, in most sports, adrenaline rushes can lead to conquest and victory, but in golf, adrenaline rushes can lead to you losing your concentration, your rhythm, your focus, and then you'll see your game go to pot. Me? I've had it happen many times. My point is, stay sober-minded. And if it's true in golf, it's triply true in everyday life. So, when it comes to dealing with anxious people, when it comes to being sabotaged by groups who hate you for not joining into, commiserating, or celebrating their victimology, it's wise and biblical to stay calm, to remain sober. You don't have to sacrifice your identity on the altar of their affliction. As I said last week, doing that won't help them, and it will sure as heck not help you. Next week, a deeper dive on why Christians are so susceptible to being pulled into the anxiety vortexes of others. Today, thank you for joining me so much. I'm honored. Please, until next week, everyone go and turn on your beautiful God-given brain.